Out on rolling hills on a clear day, Arkin sat in a cart with his brimmed hat covering his head. He heard the three fledgling adventurers talking about how exciting it was going to be to find a goblin raiding party. Arkin inwardly smirked, knowing that his skills reached far beyond that of mere goblins now. He normally wouldn't take on a job so mundane for pay so middling, but just getting into Keen had depleted the money he had a great deal, and he needed a new pal to stand on. "How about you?" asked one of the two humans out of the three. "How about you?" he said again. Arkin tipped his brimmed hat just to see if they were addressing him. "How about I what?" the black dog folk asked with an even timbre. About the goblins, they spotted about 12 of them. The human with the hand-me-down sword and the piecemeal armor said with a gleeful expression. Arkin cleared his throat to filter out all the contempt or rudeness, but didn't quite manage to strain it thoroughly enough. "Kid, the hat down means close for business. Why don't you wake me when the killing starts?" The woman, who may have been a half-elf judging from her sharp good looks, spoke, even though by this time Arkin had been close for business once again. "If you're so over it, why'd you even come with us?" "Well, darling, in this world there is such a thing as money, and it is in fact used for most things," Arkin said with his hat down. "You do this a lot then?" said one of the eager humans. "Yep," was all he said, hoping that they'd grow bored of him and let him doze off. He wasn't so lucky this day. "You're a seeker?" asked one of the young men. "Yep," Arkin added. "Most seekers are mercenaries." "Most? No, some, absolutely. We're on the road so much, it just stands to reason we're going to run out of money on long treks. It also stands to reason we know how to fight," Arkin added. "What's your rate?" said the half-elven female, ready to dissect any number he came up with. "We can go by split of the loot, or we can go by the bullet." "And how much is by the bullet?" the woman asked. 10 gold pieces for every shot I fire." 10 gold. We may not even find 2 amongst these goblins. Who would pay that? How would they know you're not missing on purpose? No seeker would risk his reputation by missing on purpose, and I don't care how much of a bastard they are. Look, kids, stay as close as you can to me, and I'll mama bird you through all of this." The baby adventurers kept on talking, but Arkin tuned them out as best as he could until they got somewhere that resembled a hideout. "Mr. Arkin, wake up! We reached a hideout. The driver doesn't want to continue. He said that it wasn't goblins anymore, but orcs, and he doesn't know how to handle them." Arkin sat up and tilted his head, open for business once more. He looked to the driver, who had the cart in a dead stop. "You work for the city then? And these goblins, maybe orcs, are mucking up the roads to get to town?" The driver nodded plainly. "Could you at least do me the courtesy of giving me an hour to assess the situation before you ride back?" The driver nodded and said, "But don't be too long. An hour is as long as an hour. Then you can keep on driving." "What about you kids? You still on board?" said the dog folk. Arkin unscrewed the barrel of his pistol, then placed the thing on the mechanical wheel on his back. The new barrel screwed itself in. "I'm still good. At least I'd like to look," said the human that presented himself as if he were a warrior by trade. The half-elven woman hopped down off the cart. "I'm still in, at least until we assess the situation." "Stay low, new kids, and try not to do anything too stupid, if and you can," Arkin relayed while hopping from the cart himself. The rolling hills that were at the start of their journey had turned into a light temperate forest. It was just a small patch in the open plains, but still a place that could be excellent for hiding or ambushes. Arkin switched the barrel of his second gun, then experimentally twisted it just to see if it were kill-worthy. "Goblins are pretty good with traps, and some of them can get pretty sophisticated," said Arkin, taking his first steps into the tree line. There he saw a thick vine tied at ankle height, so obvious even the kids saw it. So these goblins aren't gifted in the art of snares. Maybe that's why they needed to team up. Come on, watch your steps, said Arkin, taking the lead and stepping over the vines. The half-elven woman had long hair on the right side of her face that flowed wildly, though her left side was barren. She took to the front with Arkin. She was more suited to scouting ahead than the other two human men, who wore armor with feet that never found a branch they didn't like. I know you boys are wearing armor, but that don't mean you couldn't at least try not to bumble around like a horse and buggy, Arkin said coolly. The two humans walked slower and more exaggeratedly like children sneaking to a cookie jar. Arkin shook his head and wondered if he was ever that green. I see tracks, commented the half-elf. Arkin swept her way as silently as a shadow to confirm. He crouched. His long coat brushed the dirt. There were little prints and big prints. He shot a knowing gaze to the half-elf scout and nodded. Arkin began whispering, even lower than before, because if the impressions on the dirt were to be believed, they were close. Okay, new fish, I'll take point and see what's up there. If I'm not back in, say, 5 minutes, you can come and get me, or leave. Your call. I wouldn't look down on you if you did. Arkin waited a half a heartbeat for an objection, then took to the deeper forest. As he moved, he skillfully assembled his rifle with such practiced precision he didn't look down. He felt the contours of the pieces and gave it life and purpose without eyes. The moment he finished, he reached civilization as if his instincts told him when he needed to be where. He pushed out from a bush and saw goblins and orcs keeping watch. Little diminutive creatures no bigger than 3 feet at most, with skin ranging from pinkish to brown to green to yellow, stalked about. He heard heavy footsteps, but steps that were slow, as if attempting to be silent. He scampered up a tree with the speed of a woodland creature, his long coat whipping at his back like a wisp of smoke. Arkin spun his rifle and looked through the sights. It was half as long as the staff, now that it was assembled, and custom made by him. All Seeker's guns were custom, individual works of art that varied with the personality of the wielder. In anyone else's hands, it would be a foreign device of tubes, gaskets, and chambers that had no true rhyme or reason. Though in Arkin's hand, it was an instrument of death, he being the master musician. His weapon was rare in most places, except maybe Junction, but their borders were mostly closed, and it was a pain in the ass to get there through non-mystical means. Arkin moved at just the right moment and 2 orcs passed his location. 2 big warriors of humanoid stature, 2 arms, 2 legs, 6 to 7 feet tall, boorish face, and noticeably aggressive. He ignored the 2 sentries completely because he was certain they didn't see him. From his vantage, he saw the camp. It was a mix of approximately 20 goblins and 6 or 7 orcs that he could see, not counting who may have been on patrol or hidden out of sight. Arkin's eyes rose to the sky as if to do the mental calculations on how many he could take. This was a bit too small to be a tribe and slightly too big to be a raiding party. His guess was that the goblins met up with the orcs and agreed to work together, thus creating an unexpected force. It wasn't an uncommon occurrence. Goblin alliances may have been shaky, but they tended to work for short periods. He heard a heavy rustle from the forest coming from the way he came. He twirled his rifle back that direction and easily spotted his 2 armored traveling companions bumbling their way up ahead. He sighed, but at least he didn't see the half-elf woman. She was smart enough to not stand anywhere close to them. Arkin watched as the scouts he had passed turned around and slowly moved to intercept.